as we do start off with a little bit of ByuN action today, and we wouldn't have it any other way. He's our red Terran player in the bottom right side of Death Aura for game number 1 of this best of 3 series. His opponent in the top left-hand side, Billowy, the blue Protoss, whose name you might have heard of in the past, maybe you haven't heard it for a little while. He's definitely a player who's been kind of hidden under the rocks a little bit as of late, so kind of shows up in these online cups every so often and does do fairly well, but definitely doesn't seem to be playing full-time from what I can tell. So yeah, very exciting. One guess in the chat of how many days we streamed in 2020? 63.2. Okay, you know, I'm gonna leave this. I'm gonna leave this guessing game up a little bit longer, not to just hold you in suspense, but I want to see some more people's guesses. I want to see some more guesses. Maybe I'll pop it in the Discord server as well. We'll leave it up and we'll get a few guesses. I want to see if anybody gets close, or if anyone figures it out. All right, so game number 1 of this best of 3 series. We do have an SUV already moving away from the upper left-hand side, going to come down through the center, and let's just seeing the Nexus on the way already. So ByuN already picking up some of the information that would be very important for him to have in this game. Knowing that this Nexus is here is definitely important, definitely good to know about. I'm trying to get a bunker up in the back, as we do have the Reaper already making its way along, so it's going to be showing up in a few moments' time. It's in, you know, gets the probe. It's always nice to get a probe kill, of course, but you lose an SCV in the process. Pops up here. There's only 2 pylons on the map, so the tech is either going to have to show up here or here. So just checking to see if the tech was already down. It was not. Twilight Council is going to go down on the natural expansion. Just getting that going. And that's obviously what ByuN would love to see, but it's going to be difficult to do with the Stalker sitting out the front, joined by an Adept straight into the Robo. Does open that opportunity of maybe going into 4 gateways of Blink and really ramping up the aggression. Reaper up to the top. Blink is on the way through. Robo facility is already building, like mentioned, and just waiting to see if we are going to get up to 4 gateways or not here, basically, is going to be the next few moments of this. 1 gate and 2. Had a shield battery in the wall, so was playing pretty defensively, but there's nothing super early on the map from ByuN that would really punish a, you know, lack of a wall off or anything. It was really going to pressure the front too heavily anyway. It's going to be a Widow Mine drop, and even then just a couple as the Marine camp builds up, and there's already a second barracks, so very quick to barracks number 2. Gonna have a quick bio follow-up here as the tech lab sets up onto the main base. So just gonna be getting that running, and a couple of Widow Mines do start to fly their way out across to the upper side of the map. So up to the top we go. So a couple of gates coming through. Just going to be seeing the siege tank about to finish up here from ByuN. In the end, it's 3 gates, so it's that kind of middling point of, okay, so it's not going to be like super pressure based, but it's going to be Stalker heavy and 4 gases, so you're not going to take the 3rd base super quickly. You're just going to instead go up into a Robo Bay and typically into Colossus. First Widow Mine gets killed off as it unburrows, reburrows a couple times over, and no blink yet, so you can't blink Micro out of this, so he has to give up a probe. The empty medevac will sit in the top left corner. Could be used to scout when you bring it back down at some point here. More Stalkers did just warp in, but as previously mentioned, it's not like this is 4 gateways, so there is tech already on the way behind this. If this is 4 gates, you'd obviously have more Stalkers. You'd already be attacking. And typically as well, the biggest difference is really just the Robo Bay timing, right? Robo Bay would be after 6.5 minutes, whereas now it comes down at 5. The third base would be about 6.5, 7 minutes. Now it's going to be 5:30, and that's just the difference of not adding that extra gate, basically. Stalkers make their way down over here, going to jump in, and Marines are going to, well, try and help defend in the bunker, but the bunker goes down. I mean, obviously the tank provides some pretty good coverage to begin with. Stalkers jumping into the main base. That's a cancel on stim packs. That's actually a pretty huge play, canceling stim, and obviously that barracks was, we mentioned it was kind of earlier, right? So it's definitely an early stim that's cancelled quite far along. That's a little bit problematic, and this is one Stalker here, but yeah, ByuN definitely set back a bit. I mean, he's getting to the point where he'd love to have Stim to move out on the map with +1 finishing soon as well. Yeah, now he's going to have to put his next racks on the other tech lab. He's going to have to go Stim and combat shields at the same time. Do you go for Stim here? He's kind of thinking, okay, he's going to go combat right, Stim left. Tanks are just firing, and holding off those Stalkers for the moment. There's a couple medevacs actually going to boost out. They're going to find the Warp Prism here. I mean, that's just almost an unfortunate moment. It will go down. Yeah, but now you don't have Stim, so you can't really fight these Stalkers very easily. Fortunately, the couple Marauders are helping. Some Marines came from the bottom side. All of this without the Siege Tanks, which are one of the main supporting units in this stage of the game, especially if you don't have Stim, right? The Siege Tanks are the one thing you really should be looking to help you fight Stalkers. Well, now ByuN can get out onto the map, and by getting onto the map, he gives himself some opportunities. He gives himself some chances. This medevac from dropping the Widow Mines earlier makes its way home as well, so it will get out alive. But you give yourself some chances to really, well, ramp up the pressure a bit. As we see the first Colossus out, joined by number 2. So we are well into that Colossus production at this stage. So the ground army itself is good. The lacking part of this is just how good can you split up this army, right? That's where the weakness of the Protoss typically lies. That's what we typically see Terrans playing around. In the end, Stim definitely does hurt ByuN being cancelled, right? Because otherwise he may have been able to trade much better before now. Oh, it's a deadly blink. Just blinks straight in for one medevac before it gets to unload. And that's going to be the other medevac just sat in the corner. Just as you've gotten one medevac out of that corner from sitting there uselessly, another one parks up. And it has a few units inside as well. I mean, this drop was just not good. It felt like a very desperate drop, you know? I don't think there's any reason not to just leave these drops here, test the waters, or scan ahead and see what you're fighting into. You know there's a lot of Stalkers on the map, and the moment that these Stalkers are in the main base, this drop is never going to be a success. It doesn't need to drop right away to be a success, though. There's so much dead airspace here. You can guarantee sitting here with these two medevacs, and if you do that, then the Stalkers still have to position themselves in the main base and worry about it. And you still have that threat, which takes up supply defensively for the Protoss. And then, maybe you can make a play elsewhere on the map, up onto this third base, and have reasonable success there with a tank push or so. Now, if you try and tank push the third base, well, realistically, this amount of Stalkers is not needed in the main. Like, he's just trying to catch this medevac if it flies back through, because he doesn't feel the need to go anywhere else just yet. But if he catches wind of this army, he can just leave, yeah, exactly like this, like 5 or 6 Stalkers here. It's still defensive units in position, but it's nowhere near as many as if this was a double drop. And even if this does slip by somehow, I honestly actually kind of feel like this is overcommitment, especially now you've got a cannon up. Honestly, just bring the Stalkers back. Just bring everything to the front, and then you can just warp in a couple of units when the with the cannon, and that amount of bio and a medevac just isn't going to do much at all. So even now, I feel as though Billowy could be pulling more away from that main base, and really just putting more into the frontal army. But it isn't even really necessary. ByuN's not even going to find a way to attack in, and again, that's just the power of what Billowy's been able to do here. Because ByuN was not able to take a, because he's not being able to distract anywhere, this army at the front is just a bit too strong. Now we're going to fight, obviously, this is the kind of fight ByuN wants, where he can kite all day. The Colossi don't fire a single shot. And he just gets out of there trading bio units for Zealots, so ByuN's okay with that. That's the kind of trade he likes. He's actually on a great economy. 73 SCVs is actually quite pretty amazing against the 66 probes. 66 probes and a 4th base now down. Kind of interesting that we just set at 66. It's because there's no gases on this 3rd base. Otherwise, you could definitely do with a few more. Just not to take gas on the third. Gas just not really needed yet. And he did kind of stop Colossus production, but that's the thing. Usually you stop Colossus production, you add in other tech. There is one Archon on the map. And I feel like there should be more Archons, but then you don't have these extra gases, so maybe not. Just setting 4 gases for now. I mean, he got up to 4 Colossi. I guess that's a little bit of a better number. Yeah, see, that's what I mean, right? This warp in with the cannon, easy defense, right? These units are just going to go down. You lose a couple probes maybe, but yeah, that's a defender. Now, you can maybe stick around, try and kill the medevac, but that's really about it. And the medevac actually just flies through right now. So now you get the kill. Everything Protoss is moving across the map here. Remember, with a lower worker count, they'll fit a little bit more army supply in as they get close to maxing. ByuN is going to go dropping. As Billowy sets up a base on the right side in the forward position, I mean, ByuN is playing an army that's really good defensively. You've got Liberators. Obviously, they siege and control positions and locations very easily. You've got tanks, which are going to be great shooting as these units move up this ramp. The EMPs hit everything. I don't like this fight at all for Billowy just yet. The Stalker's blinking forward on low shields. Remember, ByuN is just missing a lot of army supply, though. He's got 40-ish army supply across the map right now. And even then, he's still making a decent fight here. That's how bad a fight it was for Billowy. Right now, still has Colossi firing on the command center. Can ByuN do enough? I personally don't think he can. I don't think you can do enough with this army across the map right here before your time is done, basically. Zealots warp in. They're going to charge forward. The problem is your production is going to be camped pretty much immediately, right? So you can't really continue to fight this, and Zealots are already just slowing you down here. Now you're going to have to face at least a couple of extra warp-ins. A couple of extra warp-ins would be way too much. That's GG. And it is going to be a Billowy Game 1 victory. As we start in the top left-hand side, the red Terran player who will be finding himself down a map to begin with here. You know, if he's had a shaky matchup, it's definitely been Terran versus Protoss. This is ByuN in the top left-hand side. Taking on the blue Protoss in the bottom right. It is, of course, going to be Billowy. Yeah, definitely a... Definitely just a shaky matchup for ByuN. You know, when he first came back, his TvT actually looked pretty spectacular. For me, it was by far and away easily his one of his better matchups. And then obviously we've seen his TvZ has been some of the very best in the world as well, and we've seen him take on and successfully defeat some of the very best in the world as well. But TvP, don't get me wrong, he can win games in TvP. He just doesn't always look comfortable in TvP. And I feel like a lot of the, oh my god, ByuN lost sort of losses come from that TvP matchup. See what happens here. As game number 2. He gets going with a little SCV scout coming across the map, a little look to see just what's going on. Command center building on the natural and a cyber core up in the main base as well. So Billowy getting a pretty regular start, nothing too crazy on either side of the map to begin with. Submarine is one where you can even go like early gateway, early unit pressure across the map as well. We may even still see some early unit pressure, but it wasn't like a particularly early gateway or anything. Back on the barracks, factory built in the main, second gas as well, so not going to see anything ridiculous like 3cc. Obviously 3cc would be outright outrageous to try and go into 3cc on submarine, but some people do it on smaller maps, and you know, they're like, well, people never expect me to do this, and then sometimes they die, sometimes they get away with it, but it's a very gambly play. It's just not a good map for defending on. As it is a Twilight Council opening again here from Billowy, so more of the same from Billowy, at least, with the gateway down on the low ground. Make that a couple of gateways down on the low ground. So 3 gates right away, no robo facility. This means he's going to have a higher stalker count, but no warp in across the map. At least not from Prism. Of course, smaller map, reinforcements can walk across more easily. Probe is still out here, might just look to build a pylon. Obviously, we've got quite some time until Blink is done, so there's definitely time to add in a pylon for those offensive warp-ins. So another choice right there, as this Hellion comes scaping around the right side of the map. Moving around there and looking to see what is up. Probe comes down, drops a pylon over on the left, and it's a very close warp-in pylon, so the aggression's going to rack up here. I'd almost say this is as aggressive as the 4 gates. The only thing with 4 gates is obviously you get a robo, and so you do get the vision into the main, so you can make those blink up plays happen. Oh, is he gonna go Raven? I think so. I was thinking maybe it could have been a Banshee. For one moment I was like, Banshee? But no, it's actually going to be a Raven to start us off here. So Raven to begin with, as the Marines, they move out over to the far right. We do see the probe of Billowy continuing into the top left-hand side. And these Marines in the medevac going to come down, ready to drop into the back of the natural expansion. Blink is coming up. It's going to be finishing fairly soon as our Marines drop in. And this is actually an awkward timing, right? Some Stalkers are leaving, other Stalkers warping in. I mean, for as far as ByuN's concerned, that's nice, because now he's keeping these Stalkers at home. He's actually going to keep a few of them at home, and he's definitely delayed any potential attack that might have happened from this one. Hellion gets picked off. Just going to be seeing the refineries. Extra ones coming in as ByuN sets up his own engineering bay. Bunker the front two, and most importantly, I think the siege tank production really starting to crank on up a little bit now as well. Remember, this again does not need to be a main base defense. This just has to be a forward kind of natural defense. ByuN doesn't necessarily know that though, so... Oh, those Stalkers, that's not a good blink. You're going to get the tank, but with the auto turret going down, you're going to lose a bunch of Stalkers in the process. I don't think that's worth it. Like, yes, you get rid of a tank with 3 Stalkers. It's an entire warping that you're basically... It's kind of like a production cycle for a production cycle, but the production cycles of the Protoss are way more important because it's not even the full production cycle of the Terran. It's one of the Terran's buildings, and now losing even more Stalkers here. Another little misplay by Billowy. Getting a little bit too antsy across the map and really feeling as though he had more to get done than he actually had the opportunity to do. Yeah, that's not a pretty moment or so, as we see these Stalkers going to press forward. Tank fire is going to force the Stalkers back right away. A few shots onto the bunker right now. Forge and the Robo Bay dropping into the back of the natural expansion, so getting those up. I'm just going to see still a few Stalkers out into the center, going to make their way through, going to blink straight in for another tank kill. So that's another dead siege tank, and ooh, very narrowly the Raven going down. Not quite in the end, just about surviving. Stalkers blinking away, and we see a few more of them just on the way up. I mean, this is kind of scary too, because all of these Stalkers that he's lost 8 of them, he's kind of replacing them as well. It's extremely expensive, and so you're trying to go into a Robo Bay, etc. I mean, first of all, this first push from ByuN's going to be pretty powerful, right? Because he's got tanks, he's got Marauders, and you really do only have Stalkers right now. While you're also trying to afford going into the Robo Bay, and you're going to try and take up into Colossus, and I'm just not sure how successful that will be. As the Observer arrives, the Bio Army is continuing to chase Stalkers back, and Billy just has no opportunity to really make a play into the main base. Or to make any play at all. Again, he just feels like he lost a bit too much here. Now the Raven's there, so he doesn't even need a scan to kill the Observer off. And this is going to be the first push, and this is why you don't like playing on Submarine. This army is going to arrive across the map extremely quickly. You're going to have a Raven with 1 Matrix. Your 1 Colossus is immediately disabled and unable to take part in the fight. And then you just don't have a good time. Maybe ByuN waits for combat shields and +1 attack. Maybe a couple extra medevacs as well for healing, but this attack is coming. There's no 2 ways about it. It will happen sooner rather than later. And Billowy can try his very best to slow this down, Stalker, micro, and harassment, but again, for me, this is just one of these pushes that you're not really ever meant to find a way to hold off. You've got charge. I feel like you need like 10 plus zealots here though, and right now you've got 2 and warping into more. Yeah, and you don't even need the Matrix for the first Colossus here necessarily. Okay, I mean, the second tank didn't siege up, so you will Matrix the Colossus. That obviously does make sense in the end. May as well remove that damage. Felt like it wasn't. Maybe if both the tanks got sieged, they probably could have just target fired it down. Either way, you're going to get on top of the third base and get rid of both the pylons or both the batteries, so you get rid of the defensive setup. Billowy's going to lose the third, so he's just going to type out GG, knowing that this one is already on the way out. ByuN ties us up 1-1, and we're going to go to a game 3 for our first final tournament of 23. In the bottom left-hand side, our red Terran player. Give it up if you're cheering on ByuN to complete this. Bounce back from the 0-1 deficit. Move on through in the tournament. And make a bit of a run in the Kung Fu Cup number 31. Top right-hand side, we do have the blue Protoss player, Billowy. Finally, Wardy doing something other than the Archon tourney. Yeah, well, I mean, it's been kind of, honestly, this December has been so strange, right? I mean, let me just go off tangent a little bit while not much happens early. This December has been so strange because, first of all, there was, like, TSL, right? So the weekends already got eaten up. And then on top of TSL, there's just been so much other stuff going on because you also had that week where we had DreamHack qualifiers, right? That was actually stretched out over a couple of weeks. 2 days for EU, 2 days for NA, 2 days for Korea. That on top of TSL really ate up a bunch of days initially. Then our first week of December as well, we casted a Chinese tournament, right? Yeah, I'll get to my point in a second. So the first week of December, we basically were waking up at like 4 a.m. to cast the Chinese tournament. And you know, that obviously wasn't a regular stream schedule. Then the week after that was the qualifiers, like I mentioned. And then because of that, the week after that, there was just not really anything to do. Like, I know this seems kind of wild, but like there wasn't enough days free to run anything. Usually we do the WardiTV Christmas Invitational. We've done it the last 4 years. It's the first year in 5 years we've missed the Christmas Invitational. Even with a reduced player lineup, we couldn't get enough players because there was just so much already going on in December. It's just been such a weird December. A month we typically kind of stream a lot in because it's freaking off season. It's not off season this year. That's the thing, right? Off season is going to be between like in kind of like March and April, and we do have plans for then. Don't get me wrong. We have plans for the off season. It's just so weird that it's not in December anymore after it's been December for pretty much every year, because usually BlizzCon is in November, and then November, December is off season, and then qualifiers start up in January. It's kind of crazy, right? Like I know that you guys are probably like, okay, so your point, what is like, well, usually I stream so much in December, and I feel like we stream way more than we do, and we have like a lot of hype on the stream because we're just killing it. And this month, don't get me wrong, has not been a bad month. You know, stream's been good. Sub numbers are very good compared to last year. It's just kind of a weird feeling because I feel like I've done basically nothing. But at the same time, I've got to remember that, you know, March, April will be crazy. Even January is kind of wild. I don't know if I really mentioned this, or maybe I probably mentioned this. Or obviously people around at different times. So this is going to be Blink once again, by the way. And right now, Robo into one extra gate. Looks like a battery as well. Okay. Keep an eye on this build. ByuN just doing the same kind of thing as last game Widow, or the first game Widow Mine drops and a tech lab on the factory. So maybe the possibility of a Raven here early. But yes, January's plans are crazy. We start with the Archon Tournament Finals tomorrow, 1st of January. And then 2nd through the 11th, we have OSC Championship broadcasts every day. Plus, we'll do some extra broadcasting in the evenings on some days as well. So, pretty much until the 11th with Guaranteed StarCraft. And then on the 12th, the Last Chance Tournament begins. So, that's the DreamHack event. Obviously, we'll try our best to stream around that whenever possible. And then, when the Last Chance Tournament ends, we're going to run WardiTV 2021, the $10,000 event we had to postpone from November. We're going to run that at the end of January. It's going to be January 19th to 31st. 12 days straight of amazing StarCraft 2 action. It's going to be a lot of fun. So January is already fully booked. The only streams we don't stream in January are the couple days of Last Chance that we can't really find find some tournaments on. So it's going to be kind of crazy. Should be fun. And I'm really looking forward to it. I'm excited to see like a full schedule already planned out again with some WardiTV events in there. That's what's been missing from my December, you know? That's that's just what we've not had and that we've been really missing. So I'm very excited for it to all kick off again. If you want to support it, the WardiTV tournaments and stuff, patreon.com/WardiTV. 100% of the prize of money pledged on Patreon goes to WardiTV tournament prize pools. Or you can also check out subscribing. Obviously, we take take $1 from every sub and put it into WardiTV tournament prize pools as well. Anyways, this game is underway, and things are kind of getting a bit more interesting. We've kind of seen the Widow Mine drop do okay. Couple probes, got a Stalker as well. That's nice. The Stalker pressure at the front here isn't super wild, and we see a faster third Nexus than before into the Robo Base. So third Nexus is up nice and early into Colossi, so it's a similar idea, just executed a little bit differently this time around from Billowy. It's going to be seen our medevac loading up. Is going to be moving out on around to the right-hand side. And it's going to be just the next little way of ByuN to get aggressive after this Raven shows up and does get in for a couple of probe kills. So 3 workers going down. Already a little bit of damage there, and we'll move up toward the main base. Marine's just going to stop off and get an observer. That's actually really nice. The lack of vision is what is really scary as a Protoss, because now you just don't know. I mean, you know the medevac's out here somewhere, right? But you don't know what else comes up that right side, and stopping to rebuild an observer is not really an option, because this Robo is building Colossi. Now, do you want to stop Colossus production to build an observer? Yes, you can see more stuff and you can prepare better, but that comes at the cost of then having one less Colossus for a fight, and that can be a game changer as well, as +1 stim completed, and this push is already moving across to the top side. Okay, I mean, first unit kind of gets caught there. The Marines make it in. This is really bad that the Marines get into the main, because there was 4 Stalkers sat in the main. So when you commit 4 Stalkers into this position, you're really not meant to let the units in, right? So losing 5 probes and a couple of Zealots and a Stalker, that's really not meant to happen from here, this. And this is a really weird set of videos from Billowy, by the way. I guess we should have talked about this sooner, earlier on rather than me rambling, but Oxide is this kind of map where these pushes, very similar to Submarine, push across the map. They arrive very early. They're very powerful. The tanks can sit behind ledges. Difficult to get on top of them. I'm surprised that Billowy has got both of these maps in this best of 3 map pool. I find that very intriguing, actually. It's very... it is. It's just surprising, actually. Alright, well, Nexus in the top left-hand side. We will see the rest of this moving down to the south. Zealots will go forward. We'll pick off a Marine already. Obviously, you've got Billowy, who's looking almost to find an attack, but I don't think there's a good one. The tanks are quite far set back, though, right? So there's always benefits of having map control. It's one of the big shifts we've seen in the latter half of 2020. In TvP at least, where it really has become much more about as this Raven dives in for not really too much extra and does go down. One of the big shifts we've seen is the Protoss players really taking presence of the map and taking map control with their army at a much earlier stage. Basically, once they get to 2 Colossi, they kind of say, okay, hey, what's up? Let's get on the map, right? We've got 2 Colossi. They can't be fought very easily. And, you typically just kind of find that point where the Terran does not quite have the army. Like, they have an army to sit back with tanks defensively, so you can't push in. But if they're out of position, you can absolutely catch some fights, and you can catch them if they're moving out as well. And that's where the Protoss army really excels, and so we really have seen that being a dominating factor lately. As Billowy gets up to 4 bases. This game's reminding me a lot of game number 1. Where Billowy really does just get to 4 bases without too many issues. I kind of thought he might have had a tougher time against the initial push, but ByuN didn't really commit. But yeah, Billowy kind of gets to 4 bases. He goes for Colossi. He starts 2-2. You'll again not take the gases on the 3rd or the 4th base, so you will be quite gateway heavy behind this, and will not be a lot of extra additional tech added on. I mean, obviously, 2-2 is quite expensive initially, and I'm sure we'll get an Archon or 2 extra mixed in, but it is primarily going to be more gateway units, and typically looking for a bit of a killing move. I mean, again, this is 4 bases that... It's weird because it's almost like a 3-base eco setup still. I mean, you've got more mineral income, but less gas, so... Yeah, let's see what the 4 bases bring to him, and we'll see exactly how Billowy wants to play. Remember that ByuN last time, his problem was he had like 30-40 supply across the map on Death Aura, looking for a counter drop, which just arrived too late. And so when the base trade sort of started up, ByuN was missing an army to defend with initially in the first fight. His attack was just a little bit too slow to really do anything substantial compared to the damage he was taking, and he just didn't clean up enough of the army, while Billowy was able to create a defense. This time, ByuN not going for any big lift-ups across the map. He went Vikings, Liberators last time on Death Aura 2. This time he's going to go Vikings. Death Aura is a much better map for Liberators, so it does make sense in that regard, as ByuN has sighted out these few units off to the side here. He's going to find them. Nice sense of tower usage. So yes, you do kind of have Death Aura a much better map for Liberators because of the ramps up, the defensive positions. The Vikings actually a bit better on this map because there's a lot more ledges, right? So a lot more places where the Vikings can shoot over and maybe catch a couple shots on Colossi that you might not usually kind of take otherwise. Ghost drop the EMPs of the Zealots that just do not want to be there. That's a choke point you do not push into. Prism just gets shot down as well, and it's one of these trades that doesn't really make a lot of sense, right? Why is Billowy trying to force the issue? You know, this is the sort of scenario where you just say, right, 5 bases, tech up a bit more, take these gases, right? Like, I know he's got a decent amount of gas in the bank right now, but his army is still being made into just purely zealots and stuff in addition. His army's not getting any better, and that's the only thing I'm worried about for Billowy. He has the potential to make his army and to improve his army in a huge amount, but he's not making any progress on the army at all, unfortunately. You have the army of Billowy around the right side. A few extra zealots will warp in. Now to the south, the zealot going to sit around there. A few other zealots on the left side. I mean, he's keeping ByuN contained on 3 bases, which is obviously good news. I'm still a bit worried about where this army ends up. Those EMPs are massive, and the Vikings not being target fired at all. The Archon got underneath them, but didn't shoot at them once. Now the Zealots on the left side are going to get massacred as well. They kind of got on top of a couple tanks, but this army is being chased, and there's no splash damage because the Colossi are going to die to the Vikings, so there's no splash damage left over. Now you're kind of hoping the Zealots can overwhelm. That doesn't really happen in these scenarios. Now you're going to have to spend the bank that you do have on rebuilding Colossus. The problem is, like I've been saying, this army of Billowy wasn't going anywhere for the last little while. It was very stationary as just an army that had been made. It was okay. It was good for the time it had come onto the map at, but it took a long time for it to get better. And even now, it wasn't really looking to get better. He's only going to rebuild more of what he had, and that includes being extremely heavy on the gateway units. He's got some money in the bank he can't currently spend just yet. And ByuN just pumping out the ghosts and stuff. I mean, if you actually look at the army values, you can see they're pretty... I mean, the Terran army is costing more than the Protoss army right now, right? Like, that's ridiculous. There's more gas in the Terran army than the Protoss army. Like, that just doesn't happen. That's just not a thing you usually see. These Vikings should try and lift back up to fight the Colossus, by the way. I mean, you've got Vikings that just sat on the ground. Well, that was not a good fight from ByuN. His Vikings are just sat on the ground while a Colossus shows up. It's obviously a pretty horrific setup, right? If those Vikings had been in the sky, the Colossus would have been dead. Yeah, 4 or 5 Vikings I could have just lifted up at some point. I mean, ByuN is now on a 4th base on the left side. He had 2 command centers that he's not had a chance to get into position yet. He's been trying to make work. EMP's going down, Zealots and Archons getting hit. A lot of SCVs starting to fall as well as that out in the front. And I think Billowy's actually just got enough to push through and eliminate ByuN from this Kung Fu Cup today. I mean, did have a massive bank, and he did. I mean, this is basically a victory based off the fact that he had a massive bank. You can see resources lost is even. The fights haven't been bad from ByuN. He's just ran out of stuff. This is just 5 bases versus the 3 bases. Let's actually go back a sec. Look at his income over the last 10 minutes. Like, it's not been always massively in favor of Billy, but the last 5 minutes has been. And that lead, that's the difference. That's why Billowy just won this game. Because he is mining so much more throughout this entire time.